And we are live. Welcome to the Sports Sesh podcast. I'm your host, Mason Shatwell. My co-host is James Evans, and we're on the penultimate episode of the year, number 29. We're going to end the year on 30, going strong. How you doing, James?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Obviously, we're in that sort of festive period. We're going to try and reach that 30 mark before the end of the year. But no, I'm doing all good, mate. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Just before we start, if anyone checks the description out, there is a GoFundMe page. I'll just explain a bit about it. Basically, last month, unfortunately, my family got a bit of bad news. My mum was diagnosed with stage 2 cancer, and obviously, it's not the best of times, but we're trying to think of the positives, and at the moment, we're raising money for the Christie's charity, and that's also the charity and hospital that is helping her at the moment. So far, I think we've raised £540, and we're going to be doing multiple ways of raising money for the charity. I know in the new year, we're going to be looking at possibly running a charity event and raising a lot of money. Well, fingers crossed. And next year, I've not set a date yet, but at the beginning of February, I'm going to be running my own half marathon, and hopefully people are going to sponsor me and donate, and every penny goes to Christie's. And before we start, I'm not going to name any names, but I'll just say a couple of thank yous to some of the UFC guys that have been helping out raising money. They know who they are, so thank you again, guys. And if anyone's feeling generous enough, no matter how big or small your donation is, even if it's £1, if it's £10, no matter what, everything helps. So if you can afford to, please donate to the Christie charity. The GoFundMe link is in the description below. Thank you, guys. So let's get into it. Premier League this last weekend. Now, did you think of it, James?
It's a bit of a weird one, in all fairness, to be honest with you. I mean, after our display on Saturday, I thought that was it. We're going to start to fall behind the pack, but fortunately for us, I mean, that wasn't the case. I mean, you look at the likes of Liverpool and Tottenham as well; they both slipped up. But unfortunately for us, the likes of Southampton and Leicester are still, keeping their momentum going. Brendan Rodgers at Leicester, he's doing a fantastic job. They've sort of gelled a bit recently, and I've got nothing but respect for the team and the way they're going about. As for Southampton, I mean, I questioned their tactics at the start of the season because they got that traditional 4-4-2 with Danny Ings and Che Adams, and they've got that sort of style of approach whereby they want to sort of play like the bigger teams. And I really thought they'd struggle implementing those tactics because it will take its toll on the players because it's non-stop, constant hard work going back and forth, turning a defence into offence and then from defence to attack. I was questioning myself as to whether they can keep it consistently, but they're above us so far, and I mean they've done very well. And I was very impressed with. I was watching the Tottenham game yesterday. I was very impressed with the Palace goalkeeper. Like, my God, he was saving shots for fun. I mean, Harry Kane's probably going to be scratching himself today as to how he didn't score at least a hat trick, because some of the saves Guaita was pulling off was sensational. And then at the end with Eric Dyer's free kick, man of the match display, and obviously had the Fulham Liverpool game. I mean, Bobby Reid, ex-Bristol City, my boy, scored an absolute screamer. There's a fantastic strike. And they did very well to sort of hold on for as long as they did. The penalties was a bit questionable, but in this day and age, I mean, if you put your hand up high, or like if it's a bit past your chest, eventually, VAR are going to give it. So, based on the new current laws, it was probably a penalty, a bit harsh, because all he was doing was blocking the shot. And, Mohamed Salah stepped up to slot away the equaliser. And it's going to be a very interesting game on Wednesday night because it's a big one, top of the table clash between Liverpool and Tottenham. Very much looking forward to that. And I mean, I don't know if you watched the game, but Joel Matip was taken off injured in the first half, I think, and adding to their list of injuries right now. So it's going to be an uphill struggle for them if they're without Matip and Van Dijk. It'll be interesting to see how Tottenham can exploit that, if they're going to sort of park the bus, if you will, or if they'll see the injury hit lineup, they might even go for it. But then that could also backfire on them, because you've got the likes of Firmino, Salah, and Sadio Mane hitting them on the counter-attack. But last weekend was a bit of a disappointing show for the top six, well, for the traditional top three clubs. And then even for the United City game, I mean, I was very much looking forward to that one before the Chelsea game. had all the ingredients to be a tasty affair, because the Manchester derbies always are. It turned out to be an absolute ball fest. I mean, I'm guessing United was still suffering a big hangover from, or sort of was it Tuesday night's performance in Leipzig in Germany. But to get a point against Pep City side, it's a good showing. But just the way both sides performed, it wasn't the best of games. And with City, although I think they won in midweek in their final game against Marseille, they've just been up and down recently, and their league form this year hasn't been up to scratch and up to standard as what we've used to been. I think it's the loss of the Vincent company, and they've had their own injury problems. They haven't replaced company. They haven't got a true leader at the back. Ruben Diaz and Aymeric Laporte, they're constantly chopping and changing now. It's John Stones has forced his way back into the squad, and I just don't know with Manchester City this year. There's something missing, and I think Aguero, with him being injury prone, if they can get him back fully fit, scoring goals, then maybe they can work their way up the league. But we're going into the Christmas period now, where games are coming thick and fast, like 2 a week. So it makes up a good showing and a great spectacle for the Premier League fans.
100%. I think the games this weekend have been a bit strange in terms of the results. Like Liverpool drawing with Fulham, Chelsea losing to Everton, and the Manchester derby. Like I was really excited for the United City game. As a United fan, you're always going to be excited for a derby, no matter what. But like you said, it just turned out to be a bore fest. 90 minutes, and I think there was one shot on target for each team. And in a Manchester derby, you expect more than that. Like with recent performances, we've had late comebacks, which, although they're fun to watch, it's not the kind of performances you want on paper, having to fight back. Like the West Ham game, I think obviously 1-0 down, 3-1 win, and then I think Southampton we went 2-0 down and came back and won 3-2. But I don't think that's going to be what we need in the league. Obviously, we're going to want to fight for the top 4, but at this rate, it looks like if we carry on performing like how we are, could be competing for the Europa League spots. Never mind the Champions League.
No, exactly. And I mean, I saw a statistic during the game which absolutely baffled me. I think you've only won once in the league this season at Old Trafford. And if you want to compete for the Champions League, you cannot have that abysmal home record. I know picking up points away is also just as important, but your home record, I mean, traditionally under the Fergie era, people were afraid to go to Old Trafford. I mean, they'd end up obviously getting absolutely hammered. And it was a real sort of, it wasn't the best of places to go traditionally for teams back in the day. You just knew the outcome of the game before it even took place. But now, I mean, you look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and that United team, people are going to go to Old Trafford and think, you know what, the 3 points are there for the taking now. And you just would never have thought that 10, 12, 15 years ago. One thing that stands out for me with United is your defence. I've been flabbergasted with Harry Maguire this season. He's made consistent several mistakes. And sort of the morale behind the camp is probably not very high right now, because I think you had Paul Pogba's agent, Mino Raiola. I don't know if you saw his comments recently about the midfielder not being happy there. He wants to leave, he wants a new challenge. And that's not going to do any good for the dressing room. And I think Paul Pogba, he's probably one of the most overrated players I've ever seen in my life. I mean, on his day, don't get me wrong, he's world class, but when does he have those days? He's tending to not start from the get-go for United this season. It tends to be what, Fred McTominay and Bruno Fernandes in midfield. And I feel a bit sorry for Donny van de Beek, to be honest. I mean, he just cannot seem to get a game this season.
We forked out the money for him in the summer, and obviously he's had a handful of game times. A new midfielder, someone of Donny van de Beek's status, coming from a league-winning team from Ajax, should be in our starting 11. No disrespect to Fred, but I think on his day, Donny van de Beek's a better overall player than Fred. Don't get me wrong, Fred on his day is a great player as well, but I think overall Donny van de Beek would be the better player, but I don't see why. I think the development we need to do with Van de Beek isn't going to just happen when it's just an FA Cup game here or a Carabao Cup, but with United's run of games now, I've just got them up. We've got Sheffield United on Thursday. A tie that I would have been excited about, Leeds United on Sunday. But
That's
I
tough.
don't.
Vicious.
As a United fan, this is sometimes as tasty as the Manchester derby or a Liverpool game, just because of the pure rivalry between United and Leeds. But I'm not too excited for this one. But then
Is it
after
at Ellen
that,
Road?
no, it's at Old Trafford. This one, the first one, and as you mentioned before, in the Fergie era, people used to be afraid of coming to Old Trafford. Now it's a day out to play in a big stadium for a lot of teams because they just know United aren't what they used to be. And as a United fan, it is hard to say, but it's just the reality the fans are seeing at the moment. Obviously, with us having Leeds United at home on Sunday, I'm not too confident in the game. But the one I know it's only the Carabao Cup, but United's best chance of winning a trophy this year is either the EFL or the FA Cup, I think, and depending how the draw goes in the Europa League. But we've got Everton away on the 23rd, and if Everton perform and can score like they did against Chelsea, I know they only scored the one, but like we say always, it only takes one. So we need to be careful on that note. And then, as you mentioned, it is a busy period. I think over the course of December, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games in 1 month, and that is a lot no matter what when you're training every day as well. But also leading into early January, we've got Watford at Old Trafford in the FA Cup, and Watford are going to be one of those teams that obviously they're in the Championship now. They're going to be pushing for promotion, but if they don't win the FA Cup, they're not going to have much to lose. But if, like I just said, if they don't win the FA Cup, they don't have much to lose. If they beat us, great. They've just beat one of the bigger teams in. Well, we're supposed to be the bigger team, but at the moment we're not playing like it. But Watford aren't going to have. I don't think they're going to have any nerves or hold back in any way. I think they'll go all out for it, and I think that's what United need to do. Even though it is just the FA Cup and the Carabao, we need to put a dent in there and make sure teams are obviously going to be aware of us. But at the moment, I don't see it being likely.
No, it's certainly a tough one to spell for you boys.
100%. I just think we don't play like we used to. It's just one of them things. It's a sad reality that United fans, all of us, are just going to have to realise. Well, I don't think we'll ever return to the glory days of Sir Alex Ferguson. I wish the old guy had come out of retirement and help us, but that ain't going to happen. But it is hard to see. I know it's been seven going on to 8 years next year since Fergie retired, and the team he left us with, great players. I know obviously David Moyes was only there for 3/4 of a season, didn't do a good job. Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, now Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We've had 4 managers and 1 interim manager in Ryan Giggs in that time. That's not what a club like United needs. Usually, I'd say we need to stick by the manager, but I love Ollie, but I don't think managing Manchester United is right. Don't get me wrong, he's had the great wins in the likes of Paris twice, but I just don't think that's going to be sufficient enough. Two good nights over. Obviously, we've had our fair share of highs and lows with Ollie so far, but I don't think that's going to be sufficient enough to keep the job as manager. If he'd still want it, I'd look at inquiring over Mauricio Pochettino, because I think what he did with the Tottenham team, I know it took him over the course of 5 years, but I know a lot of fans would be. Obviously, we've waited. This is 7 or 8 seasons without winning the league. We're not going to win it this season. I don't care what anyone says. We're not. It's just the reality. But if we was not obviously never going to be guaranteed, but if we was guaranteed a high chance of winning the league, I'd be happy to wait another 2 or 3 seasons under Mauricio Pochettino, just so he can build his team and get us hopefully back up into the glory days. I don't think we'll never be as good as what Fergie left us as, but challenging for the league title, that's all you can really ask for. So if that can be possible, I'd be more than happy with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're sort of giving him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, if that was any other manager, I don't know, just some top managers at the top of my head, like Zinedine Zidane, Jurgen Klopp, anyone that has no sort of history with United, they probably would have gotten the chop by now. But because there's some sort of background with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, former United player, they might have given him the benefit of the doubt. And if he goes tomorrow, who's going to sort of be chomping at the bit to sign him as their manager? No one, because he's not proven. He's proved it in the Swedish league. What did he bloody do? He got Cardiff relegated from the Premier League, and he's had his he's had some moments at Manchester United, but he's not really done anything outstanding. And I think you compare that to the likes of Jurgen Klopp, Zinedine Zidane. Say if they walked tomorrow, say if they were sacked, you'd be chomping at the bit, desperate for them to put pen to paper for Manchester United. I just don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is sort of. I think he's tactically inept, in my opinion. I don't know if he's the manager to sort of guide you forward and take you forward. I think Mauricio Pochettino is. If you do get him, and if he does want to, come to Old Trafford in the near future, then he's 100% that man to sort of start winning new trophies. And I know you touched upon earlier with the brief spell he had couple of years spell he had at Tottenham. He took a small, bang average team at best who was sort of getting there in a way to sort of a top tier club and getting them into the top four consistently, got them to a Champions League final when nobody expected it. And, he deserves all the praise in the world. And it's just a sort of shame towards the end. I think Tottenham fans were giving him a bit of stick, whereby I think they should sort of take a step back and sort of respect some of the stuff he did, given the sort of lack of top class players you had in your squad. I think he did a lot with what he had. I think I get towards the end, he was a bit unhappy with Levy and the transfer signings or the lack of transfer signings. Yeah. I can totally respect that. But if he does come to United, I think it's going to take him. I wouldn't even think it would take him a lot of time to sort of adapt, because he knows the Premier League well. He knows the drill with Manchester United. I'm sure he's been eyeing up that job for years, over the years gone by. So if he walks through that door in Old Trafford, and, tomorrow morning, next month, next season, what have you, I can guarantee you he'll sort of steady the ship a bit and turn it around for Manchester United, because you really need that sort of manager right now, because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is not that man to take you forward and guarantee trophies.
100% not. Well, while we're on about the Premier League, we'll go on to another competition. How would you assess your draw in the Champions League?
I mean, to beat the best, you got to be the best. You got to beat the best, and I mean, out of everyone, I was hoping for either Porto, Lazio, or Mönchengladbach, and lo and behold, Manchester City. Obviously, they got the easiest draw. I mean, why am I not surprised? We've probably got one of the toughest opponents yet. I mean, obviously, because we finished top of our group, we were guaranteed to get the second place in ABC, or whoever finished second. And I think as of right now, as a Chelsea fan, the only team I fear in Europe is Bayern Munich, and thankfully they finished top of their group. But Atletico Madrid, it's no place to. It's not the easiest of ties, because them with Diego Simeone. Traditionally, they're just that sort of European Spanish shithouse teams who can sort of sit back and hit you on the attack and get the job done. You look at what they did to Liverpool last season; they did just that. João Felix seems to be coming up clutch for them recently. He's sort of having a good start to the campaign. They've lost a couple of players, but they've also brought in Luis Suarez, who, I mean, he's in and out of the team, but he still scores goals. He's still he's coming towards the end of his career, but he's still at the top of his game. So we just can't overlook them at all, because it's going to be such a tough test. But I think we can go away to Madrid and get a result, because, we've done it in the past with a very, very depleted squad under Conte. I think Michy Batshuayi got the winner, and it was just I think we've improved massively since then in terms of our squad and our summer signings and what have you. So if we can go to Madrid and get the result and hold out at the bridge, maybe sort of sneak another win, I can see us getting the win. Over the course of the 2 legs, but it's not going to be easy by any means, because you know what Atletico Madrid are on their day. They're very capable, and Chelsea will always be susceptible to that counter-attack from Madrid, because they're just going to be piling men forward. And Atletico Madrid's defence is just sort of going to be resilient and consistent and not slip up, as they always are. So if we can get the job done away, that sort of takes the pressure off a little bit when the second leg is at Stamford Bridge or wherever it is.
100%. Well, while you've just spoke about your league teams, European tie, United, we're back home basically. Europa
Yeah,
League,
back in Europe League.
it's like a reoccurring incident. That's it. We're always going to be in the Europa. Well, at this stage, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, again, no disrespect, but he's not going to guide us to a Champions League trophy.
No.
It's going to be hard for him to guide us to a Champions League place this season. That's why we'd need someone like Mauricio Pochettino. But we've got to be optimistic with what we've got. We've got Real Sociedad in the next round, top of La Liga. It's going to be really tough game. But as I was saying to you before off stream, I believe it's going to be a 1-goal either way. I think somewhere I think it's their place. I think it's got the ability to be maybe a competitive game on their point where they're going to push forward and United are going to be susceptible to the attacks. But I think I've got a feeling that it could be a 0-0 over in Spain. But at Old Trafford, like we mentioned before, it used to be the place everyone was scared of, but now they're not. I don't know what to expect. We could see United slip it in and obviously get the 1 goal, but I would not be surprised if Real Sociedad did a Sevilla on us and got us late in a game. But it's just
they've got the players.
100%. I am worried about the game because I know it. No one really wants to be in the Europa because it's a Thursday night. You can then play on the Saturday. It's going to be tough. Could travel to the likes of Russia, which is a trek for a Thursday night. But obviously, we want to win it now. We're in it. But depending on the way they're drawing, if we can get past Real Sociedad, I don't know if we will. But if we can, I think we could have a chance. But who knows? To be fair, in football now, it is getting quite exciting. Well, there's just the thing here to pull up. I'd be up to seeing that final, Tottenham United final in Europa. That don't want it because I think they could beat us, but I'd be up for watching it. But yeah, in football now, it's getting quite interesting. Obviously, we've spoke about the Prem, we spoke about Champions League, the Europa, but now I'm going to switch focus over to the boxing side of the sporting world. And Anthony Joshua knocking out Kubrat Pulev in the 9th round on Saturday. What did you make of AJ's performance?
I mean, I'm Tyson Fury all the way. I don't know. Did you watch it on Saturday night?
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you, but yeah, I watched it as well.
Yeah, I think obviously it was clear to see from the opening rounds, it was all Joshua right from the opening bell. I was very impressed as he was sort of working behind the jab and sort of refused to allow Pulev to find some sort of rhythm. And I think the first 2 rounds were rather tame from my sort of perspective, obviously with Joshua coming out on top. But he unloaded a huge right hand in the 3rd that rocked Pulev. And, Pulev smiled, but you knew he was hurt. But, that big Bulgarian beast has got an absolute steel of a chin 100%. To sort of survive those couple of rounds with those hard shots from Joshua. Fair play to him, and then launched a barrage of punches with bad intentions, and then Pulev turned his back and was sort of giving up in a way, but managed to survive the first count, returned to action, and was met with a couple of nasty uppercuts that sent him to the mat again. They're very dangerous with those uppercuts. I mean, you put Joshua in against the likes of Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. If he's going to constantly use that sort of the uppercuts, that's going to leave him very susceptible to the counter strikes, and he's got to be very careful in his approach to these top fighters and Tyson Fury and Wilder if those fights ever do happen. But again, ultimately, is Pulev, he managed to survive the round, but again, the clock was ticking. Really, we all thought it was a case of when, not if, Joshua was going to stop the fight. He had to be very patient in the next couple of rounds, again, staying sharp behind those jabs until he found the opening again. And then those uppercuts were bloody lethal, let me tell you. I mean, I was looking at him, he landed about 4 or 5 in a row at some point. And again, Pulev, he would rise and drop back to the floor on the canvas and somehow got up. But then the referee stopped it in the end because Anthony Joshua sort of unleashed that right hand again, took advantage, and that right counter just wiped him out completely. And there's no stopping Pulev this time. And there's no stopping Anthony Joshua getting the victory on this one because he just could not survive those 10 seconds. If he got up from that counter right from Joshua, I'd be like, you know what, fair play, because he was very impressive. It was a great technical performance from Anthony Joshua. He deserves all the plaudits, and hopefully that sort of sets up a fight with Tyson Fury. It might not do because Alexander Usyk's mandatory, so they might sort of give it to Usyk next, but I'm sure they'll work it out.
100%. Well, I'll tell you what, I wasn't too fond of during the fight. I remember watching it, and it seemed to be also a bit of a dirty boxing match at the same time. AJ's just as guilty as Pulev was, but a couple of times after the bell, they was hitting each other, and I think there's no need for that. But I think it's just because of how much emotion and heat and arguing happened going into fight week. I just think, obviously, it's getting the better of both guys, but also made me laugh at, I think it was towards the beginning of the fight, AJ landed a few good right hands on Pulev, and Pulev just laughed in his face. And I don't know what would have went through AJ's mind there, because imagine you're there punching someone and then they're laughing in your face. It's obviously it's going to be disrespectful, but you've got to be in boxing. But it's also going to be a bit undermining. You're thinking, I'm hitting this guy and he's just there laughing in my face. What the fuck am I supposed to do?
Definitely took its toll though.
100%.
You can tell yourself.
Yeah, you could tell. To be fair, like you said at the beginning, you're Tyson Fury all the way, so am I. But I really enjoyed watching AJ.
Oh, same.
I just think I think we've seen the more of a street fighter AJ than we have of the sensible boxing AJ, like we did see in the second Ruiz fight. I think he needed to go out there and do a performance like that, where he beat him up for 9 rounds and knocked him out. He needed it, just so obviously. If it was a boring points decision, I don't think there would have been too much commotion over the Fury fight. But as much as I love watching both guys, Fury and AJ, but what kind of got me when AJ was asked about Fury at the post-fight press conference, it was, is Tyson Fury next? And he was like, whoever's got the belt. And obviously, that's a good answer for someone where the fight's not heavily linked with Fury, but when you've been linked with Fury for years, and now you only say if it's Fury, then it's Fury. In my opinion, Anthony Joshua should have gone out there and said, like he did when I can't remember who he beat now, but when he was like, Wilder, let's go. In my opinion, he should have done something like that to Fury. But I'd love to see that fight. It'll be like everyone's saying it'd be the biggest fight in British boxing history, possibly one of the biggest fights in heavyweight history, the unification bout. But if we see that fight, remains to be seen. But I think the best time would probably be summer of next year to give both guys
fans back.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think where Deontay Wilder comes into this equation now, because I heard the fight between him and Fury was off due to negotiations, but
they're still figuring that out, I think. But if that doesn't happen, I think he should fight Ruiz. Wilder.
I don't know, because I see Wilder knocking Ruiz out. Like, really?
I mean, that's the point for Wilder. If he wants to get back to the top, then he's got to be beating these top contenders, because obviously, like I said, Anthony Ruiz just fought AJ. He won one and obviously lost one. But, you know, the way he won in New York for the first fight against Joshua is just, nobody expected that. And it was absolutely sensational with his performance. So you've got to stick him in against Wilder, test Wilder. And if he wins, you know, fair play to him. That sort of might set up a trilogy fight with Fury. But who knows right now, because I think Wilder's side, they still definitely want that trilogy fight. But with Fury, I think Fury wants to fight with Joshua. But yeah, summer, total 2021. If they do fight, it'll be more than once, maybe twice, maybe even 3 times between Fury and AJ, depending on the outcome of the first fight. 100%.
Well, depending if the Fury and AJ fight happened for Wilder, I'd like to see him against Usyk. Obviously Usyk's the mandatory challenger at the moment, but if that fight isn't the next fight to be booked, him and AJ, and it does turn out to be Fury and AJ, I wouldn't mind watching a Wilder Usyk fight, because obviously Wilder's got the ability to knock out Usyk, but if he's gonna do it, remains to be seen. Obviously, Usyk's one of the top technical boxers that we've got in the heavyweight division at the minute. I know he's only had 2 fights. He's won them both. He had I can't remember who his heavyweight debut was against, but I know he had a stoppage winning that, and he's recently had the I think it was points, win over Derek Chisora, and I would like to see that fight. I really don't know. I think Wilder could win that by knockout, but obviously if he does, we'd have to see if that happens.
Yeah, it would be tough to try and get Usyk versus Wilder, because I think Joshua's obviously he's got the WBA, then the IBF and the WBO, and Alexander Usyk, he's in a sort of separate heavyweight ranking compared to Deontay Wilder. If it does happen, it's going to be the negotiations are going to be very tough. I think Tyson Fury's got the WBC title, which is in the same bracket as Deontay Wilder, Povetkin, and Alexander Usyk's up there as well. But I think predominantly he's more in the WBA sort of side than the IBF, and I sort of see Usyk leaning. He'll want that fight with AJ next, because I don't know if you watched his fight with Derek Chisora. I mean, Derek Chisora, he had his moments in the fight with Usyk, but ultimately Usyk's sort of composure allowed him to take the fight back on points, and he controlled the fight for the majority of the 12 rounds, and he did very well. So if they do get a fight with Joshua, I think that's what Usyk wants. But if they do get, if you say you want Usyk versus Wilder, it's going to take some doing the promotion and the contract negotiation standpoint.
100%. Well, after we've spoken about boxing, now we'll move on to probably our expertise in the UFC MMA world. Before we go on about this weekend, I'd just like to obviously state Yo Romero's now signed with Bellator. What's your thoughts on that after it's now been more or less confirmed that he'll be competing at 205?
Yeah, I mean, it was only a matter of time. I think he's lost his last he's won one in his last 5 or 6 fights, Yo Romero. So you look at Dana White, he was going to say there's going to be at least 60 cuts before the end of the year, and a lot of these big names are going to go. And I think, Cowboy Cerrone, he might be up there. And I think Jacare Souza, he'll definitely go, I think, after his loss against Kevin Holland. And I can see some of these big names in recent years, paving way for the new generation to come in, because that's ultimately what Dana White wants. He wants the new fish and the new sort of contenders and the new athletes coming into the UFC, coming into the promotion and staking their claim for being one of the best MMA fighters in the world.
Well, like I said to you again off stream before, I think a fight between, well, you mentioned it first, a fight between Yo Romero and Anthony Rumble Johnson would be a great fight. But if Johnson would want that fight or is ready for that fight yet, it is a matter to be seen. But
predominantly, Yo Romero has always been like a big 185 lad, hasn't he? I mean, traditionally you'd expect him to be a light heavyweight, so it's sort of a natural weight class for him now, considering he's like mid-40s.
100%. Also, as I mentioned, I'd like to potentially see Corey Anderson and Yo Romero in the Bellator cage.
Yeah, I think Romero might have to have one fight first before getting, because I think Corey Anderson's already won in Bellator, I believe.
On his Bellator debut, yeah.
So I think Yo Romero might be playing catch-up first.
100%. Well, after we just spoke about Bellator and Yo Romero, UFC 256 this weekend, the main event, Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno, ended in a majority draw.
Yeah, what a bloody fight that was, though. What a bloody fight. I think Dana White came out afterwards.
History, like Dana said.
Yeah, Dana said best flyweight title fight or best flyweight fight ever in the history of the sport. It's just absolutely unbelievable. From back and forth, like right from the opening bell, Figueiredo and Moreno spent no time in, slung in the leather without taking a step back. They're there in the centre of the octagon. There's obviously that bit of controversy where, but I think it was Moreno landing those illegal shots, and I think Figueiredo edged, or certainly won the opening round in my book, and Moreno took the second round with a pair of nice couple of takedowns, and Figueiredo sort of had to change his way leading into the third, and he sort of controlled that round, and then ultimately landed another illegal blow, and I think Moreno instantly fell to the mat and just was, took his time, and obviously he said he was okay to continue, and then as soon as that foul sort of woke Moreno up, because he then started to sort of press forward and sort of pressing the action and scoring a lot of takedowns and rocking Figueiredo on more than one occasion. Again, Figueiredo would then fire back to let Moreno know that he wasn't going to give up the belt that easily. In the 5th round, I think the reason why it was a draw was because I gave it to Figueiredo the final round. I think one of the judges scored it to Moreno, so that's why it ended up a draw, which is a bit of a weird one. There's a couple of nice elbows and head and body shots from Figueiredo towards the end of the round, which ultimately I think he got the W on that one. But again, it was so close. And kudos to both fighters, mate, to be honest, because they both took it on 3 weeks' notice after their impressive victories at 255. Take nothing away from Brandon Moreno. That man is legit. And I think from my sort of perspective, Figueiredo outgunned Moreno with some heavy striking and a couple of critical takedowns towards the end of the fight as well. But Moreno, he's legit, man. Wherever the fight goes, he's dangerous off of his back. And even standing up, he's got a nice couple of elbows in his back pocket. He can hit, he can do it all. And I think the rematch is certainly going to be interesting. But I don't know if you saw on the night of the fight or the day before the fight, he was taken to hospital, Figueiredo. And he was up till like 2 or 3 in the morning, and the UFC was like, do you want to fight this? Because you don't have to. We can see that you're very ill. I think the medical team gave him the all clear to fight, but he was struggling. Again, you just got to give more props to Figueiredo for carrying on if that was the case.
100%. I really enjoyed that main event, as you saying, we both said, and Dana, best flyweight fight in history. Both guys throwing absolute bombs, and it was one of the first times I've seen Figueiredo hurting the fight, because I know Moreno rocked him a couple of times, but it was ultimately the points deduction that took the fight away from Figueiredo. Because two of the judges had it a draw. Obviously, if the 1 point for Figueiredo didn't get taken away, it would have been Figueiredo winning all 3. But taking on nonetheless, the rematch is going to be fun. Both guys are going to be up for it. Hopefully, we don't have to wait too long for that, and we could see it in February, March of 2021. Give the time.
Yeah, give them their break though, man. To be honest, because Figueiredo was taken immediately to hospital, and you look at Brandon Moreno after the fight. I mean, he looked beaten up. Just give him some time off and stick it on. I don't know, a big pay-per-view card, and it might be one of those where it'll have like 3 title fights on the line, and the flyweight one will be first. And yeah, stick him on a big sort of mid 2021. Big fight card, maybe International Fight Week, unless they want to get it done earlier. I don't know, but early 2021 could be a bit of an ask.
Yeah, I'd be down to see it there. Another fight that happened, heartbreaking for us all. Tony Ferguson, Charles Oliveira. Can't take nothing away from Charles Oliveira.
No, that man is legit.
Complete dominant performance, as most of his have been recently. But one, I'll give credit. Well, you've got to give credit for Tony for staying in there, but the main credit you got to give it that armbar at the end of the third.
How he didn't tap? How he did not tap? It's something else.
It was hyperextended to the point where I thought his arm was going to break. I thought the referee was going to stop it. Never mind Tony tap. But as we know, Tony would rather have his arm broken than tap. So
yeah, exactly.
That was never going to happen. But leading into the fight, I got swayed by Tony's confidence. I'm not going to lie, the show that we usually do with Arch on the Absolute Sports Degeneracy podcast, I did originally have Charles Oliveira to win, but then after seeing how confident Tony was during fight week, I ended up switching my prediction to Tony just because of his confidence. Obviously, Tony's Tony. He's not going to change, but he's now he's not got a main coach. He's got the guys that are going to help him. He
doesn't like coach. He doesn't like the term coach, does he?
He's got his striking coach and he's got a jiu-jitsu coach, but he's not got a main coach. So whatever he does, if he wants to do jiu-jitsu today, he'll do jiu-jitsu today. If he wants to do striking today, he'll do that. What Tony wants, Tony gets, basically. And I think that could have been a bit of a downfall. I think someone like Tony needs someone as a main coach in his camp.
I totally agree.
Just to keep him straight on the straight and narrow edge. I think, obviously, I don't, like we've mentioned it before, obviously, we've spoke a bit off stream as well about Tony. I think it's, like you said, it's either retirement that's going to be more probably considered based on his age and just how dominant the guys in the field are now at the moment, or potential fight with Paul Felder, which I wouldn't say no to, but again, just based off being a big Tony fan, I bet I'd see that one as a Tony decision more than the Charles Oliveira fight, but Felder's certainly got the power to do so. I don't agree. The judges should have even awarded the fight to Felder on one card against RDA, but they did. But RDA won majority decision, but obviously, split decision. Sorry, I think Felder had his moments, but obviously, I don't think he won. But the fight against Tony, if that ever happened, would be an interesting one. But UFC 256, it was full of surprises that night.
I mean, I'll be really surprised if Tony Ferguson retires, because if he truly believes that he's got something left in him, then fight Paul Felder. I mean, I say I will be surprised if he retires. I won't be in a way, because he's 36, 37, but he'll go down as one of the best fighters to not win a title, or if not the best fighter to not win a title, because every time Tony Ferguson fights, people watch, people listen, people tune in, because everyone just wants to watch him fight and everyone wants to watch him perform. He is just an unbelievable athlete, but he was willing to compete on the mat against Charles Oliveira, which was just not the ideal strategy and ideal game plan for him whatsoever. And I think Charles Oliveira, bar Khabib, I think he causes a lot of trouble for the top 10 at lightweight, and he's proved he's legit now. And I think he's only looking up. He cannot be looking at the likes of Kevin Lee, Ally Quinton now. He's fought. Tony Ferguson beat Tony Ferguson. I say Kevin Lee. He's already fought Kevin Lee. He's already beaten Kevin Lee. He can't look at the likes of Paul Felder, RDA, and Alec Quinton now, because he deserves to be mentioned in the top bracket alongside the likes of Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Conor McGregor, Tony Ferguson. Because after that fight last weekend, he deserves to be amongst the top contenders at lightweight. And I think he's just so well rounded in his approach, and I just love to see it. I mean, if Khabib's definitely retired, I'm going to sort of throw my money out there, and it's a bit of a bold statement, but I think Charles Oliveira could become the next champion. I don't see who causes him any sort of dangers at all, because Justin Gaethje, I know he's going to predominantly be the better striker that night. He's going to be throwing bombs left, right, and centre, has the ability to knock out Charles Oliveira. But on the mat, I know Gaethje's got that wrestling background, but you saw it against Khabib. Did he really have that good of a wrestling background? Because I think you look at I think the best fighter to face Khabib was Conor McGregor, because he did well to defend off his back at times. And Gaethje, if he's going to come up against Charles Oliveira, who's just unprecedentedly great at jiu-jitsu, it's going to be a tough ass. As for Poirier and all that, I genuinely see Charles Oliveira beating him. So he made a real statement on Saturday night to become the next lightweight champion. And again, it was a very good night full of outstanding performances. You look at Cyril Garner. I've been very impressed with Garner. I've been raving about him for a while, and he got a big win against JDS, who's another name that might get cut. And obviously Kevin Holland probably was one of the names that stole the show last weekend, in my opinion.
100%. Well, there was two more fights I wanted to speak about 256. You just mentioned one there, Cyril Garner and JDS. I love JDS, but as I was saying on the shows I appeared on during the week, the UFC matchmaking show and Archie's Absolute Sports Degeneracy, I think no disrespect to JDS, but I think it is time to hang up the gloves now. I just think there's not much more he can do. He's former champ. He's had the wars with Kane. He's had the fights with Verdum. He's fought Stipe. He's fought Ngannou. I know he's lost them too, but he's still fought the guys, and obviously he's come up short against them. But I think it's time for him to pave way for the next generation of heavyweights, because you've got the likes Cyril Gane. I know a lot of people aren't fans of him, but Greg Hardy and even some of the guys that are not near ranked as of yet, but still coming through, like our British guy Tom Aspinall. I think the guys like him, Cyril Gane, Greg Hardy, are going to be the next wave of UFC heavyweights. And obviously, no disrespect to the older guys, but they're going to have to pay way sooner or later. So without him suffering any more damage, I think it's time for JDS to call it a night.
Yeah, 100%, because he does want to establish himself as a gatekeeper in the heavyweight division. He's a former champion. He's got a great legacy. And, if he walks away right now, no one's going to sort of kick up a fuss about it, because he's had a glittering career. He's a true veteran of the sport. You've got to respect him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets released, to be honest with you. But, like you said upon earlier, former champion. He's beaten a lot of big names over recent years. So why not call it a night? Because, you've got the new era of the heavyweights coming through, as you obviously mentioned, Garner, Tom Aspinall, all these big names coming up through the rankings. I think I think he should leave before he takes more damage.
100%. And then the final fight I wanted to talk about this weekend, well, the weekend's just gone card was Kevin Holland, Jacare Souza. As you mentioned, Jacare before, again, no disrespect, but like JDS, I think it's his time. He's had a great career. He's had the wars he's been in title contentions in the UFC for a while, but now I think it's just time for him to again call it an eye. I just think after the performance against Holland, I can't remember what was said, but one thing that did make me laugh was how they both spoke to each other during the fight. But with Kevin Holland, that's always happening. It just made me laugh that they both laughed about it in cage.
Yeah. I mean, I love Kevin Holland. I mean, you saw him in his walkout, he was just vibing, and even in his stare downs, you could clearly tell he was feeling confident. And I just loved the matchup. And going into fight week, I mean, he was on a great streak of form, 4 fights in a row, and now he's on 5, which is the tied for most consecutive wins in a UFC year. So, fair play to Kevin Holland. That man is legit. Early on, he threatened with a triangle, but again, this is Jacare. You're not going to submit him easily. And then I think Jacare had him in full guard, dropping shots. Even when Jacare was dropping shots, Holland was still laughing and talking to him the whole time. It's just absolutely wild. And then from the bottom, I think Holland created some sort of distance with his legs. And then, I mean, that right hook to Jacare's temple from off his back, I'd never seen anything like it before. That was just, I think that was the second knockout off somebody's back in the history of the UFC, because I think Nico Price got the other one.
As you seen in Holland's post-fight interview with, I think it was Rogan, he was quick enough to correct Rogan on the fact that Nico Price was the first one, but the fight's not going to happen. But I had big respect for him for calling out Chimaev for this Saturday's card, but the fight won't happen.
I think he should turn his attention to Jack Hermansson, because they were supposed to fight last month, weren't they?
But someone else that he's mentioned that he doesn't like, Derek Bronson. That's a fight Kevin Holland wants, and that's a fight I think Kevin Holland should get, because bad blood going into a fight is always going to make for an interesting watch. Viewers are going to tune in. And as we've seen with Kevin, obviously, he said he doesn't like the guy and he wants the guy. But something I seen on Instagram today, Darren Stewart posted, I can't remember what was the full post, but he mentioned Kevin, and there seems to be a bit of not negativity, but a bit of hostility, as you say, between the pair. Obviously, like they had a lot of fans for Darren Stewart once. Well, if that was the next fight for Holland, I wouldn't be surprised and I wouldn't be disappointed if they ran it back. But like we was talking about, the knockout against Souza, wow, I was so shocked, and how he folded him in half with the punches afterwards. I felt sorry for Souza after the fight, because you seen the referee, the cornermen helping him up, and then he's almost going unconscious again, trying to sit down. But as we said, that's not. Well, I think it's time for Jacare, but if he does, I don't know. But if he gets cut, I see someone like Bellator going in for him like they have with Romero, same with JDS. No disrespect to Bellator. I love watching their fights, but they do seem to get a lot of washed up UFC talent. No disrespect to the fighters either, but it just seems to be the case at the minute, doesn't it?
Mm.
As we've seen, obviously, the likes of Corey Anderson, Yo Romero, and then now potentially Jacare and JDS, just seems a lot of UFC rejects.
I think they still want their best men.
Yeah, don't mean that, guys, but I think it's just facts in it. But now I'll get the fights up for next weekend, because I wrote them down, the few main ones that I'd like to give us both a prediction for. Main event, Stephen Thompson, Jeff Neal. Obviously, the main event was supposed to be Hamzat Chimaev and Leon Edwards, but we can't complain about a Stephen Thompson, Jeff Neal fight over 5 rounds.
No, exactly. I mean, I'm very much looking forward to that fight with the two pure strikers going head to head. And I love Wonderboy Thompson, but this is going to be a tough ask for him. I think Neal hasn't been as active as he should be this year. I know he's had his health problems, because he was scheduled to fight Neil Magny, and then ultimately Magny went on to face Robbie Lawler, a former champion. So he's not been as active as he should be, but this is going to be because going from Mike Perry to Stephen Thompson, that's a bit of a big ask, to be honest with you. This is his first real test against a true rank contender at welterweight. And again, 2 pure strikers at heart. This is going to be an absolute banger. I think he'll go the full 5 rounds as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think it's going to go 5 rounds. I think it will be close because Jeff Neal, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, both great guys in the cage, and I am really looking forward to that. But if you had to give a prediction on who you think will edge the fight, who would you say? Because I think I'm edging towards Wonderboy.
Same. I think Neal, he hits really hard, but I think technically speaking, in terms of the striking, wherever the fight goes on the feet, I think Stephen Thompson has Jeff Neal's number. I think he will get the fight done. Again, we've seen with Wonderboy, he hasn't been as active as he should be, and we all love Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. So why not back our boy on this one?
But it's impossible not to like Wonderboy. But next fight, Jose Aldo and Marlon Vera. Obviously, Marlon Vera coming off the knockout against Sean O'Malley. Jose Aldo coming off the loss to Petr Yan. But I think
we saw glimpses, didn't we, of the old Jose Aldo at times.
I think I did enjoy the fight, but I don't think Jose is going to be title contention anymore. No. I think he's got a couple. If he loses this fight, again, no disrespect to him, but I think he should hang. He's not even that old, though, is he?
He's like mid-30s, like 34.
Yeah. But he just seems old because he's been around for such a long time.
Yeah,
obviously, he's been the heart of the MMA for the best part of what, 10
decades, maybe even longer.
Yeah, but this fight, I don't know what to expect because obviously Marlon Vera, a very, very talented guy, but I know obviously he deserves a Sean O'Malley win, but was it a fluke? Would it happen again? I don't know.
It's certainly a step up in competition to face a former champion, a former great in Jose Aldo. Like I said, to go from Sean O'Malley, who's dubbed the next big thing, to Jose Aldo, former champion, it's a tough ask. I think this one, again, will go the distance because it's 3 rounds and both men are sort of... The first one will be a bit of a feeling out process for both men because they don't want to be cautious. They don't want to be too sort of optimistic in their approach and leave them susceptible to counter and those hard shots and eventually, ultimately get finished. But the second and third round is where both fighters are really going to go for it. And based on, what he's done over the last couple of years and the past decade and being the former champion, I think Jose Aldo will have this one in the bag. If he, I want to see him throw more leg kicks. I really want to see Jose Aldo use the leg kicks. And if he mixes his striking up well, then we may see the Aldo of old come up clutch in this one. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't think we'll see him in title contention anytime soon. But again, he needs a big win, to be honest with you. And what way to get a win over Marlon Vera?
Well, I would love to see Jose win, but at the moment, obviously, predictions might change, but I'm edging towards Marlon Vera on this one. But the next fight after that, I've got Marlon Moraes and Rob Font. I'm edging to, I think Marlon Moraes will have this. I just don't think
he finishes it.
Yeah, I'm thinking second or third round finish for Marlon. I don't think Rob's gonna give him too much of a challenge. No disrespect, but I just think Marlon, I know obviously he's not been on the greatest of forms. He defeated Jose Aldo, and his last fight was against Corey Sandhagen, I think. And obviously, we know how that one went. But obviously, he's moving. He's still going on. I think Marlon finishes in this one. What do you think about this fight?
Yeah, same. I think just in terms from a ranking sort of standpoint, it's one of those whereby potentially the UFC may want to get Marlon a win under his belt to put him back into contention. But again, Rob Font is he's a bit of a veteran himself. He's a tough bloke, to be honest with you. He can mix it up well. He can go the distance. He's very dangerous on the mat as well, and he's got that knockout power. But ultimately, I think it's a bit of a favourable matchup for Marlon Moraes in this one. I think he will get the better in and standing.
100%. Next fight I've got on there is Marcin Tybura and Greg Hardy. I don't think until he faces some of the big competition, I don't think any of these lower ranked guys are going to trouble Greg Hardy at the moment. I think it's going to be when he's getting to the top 6, top 7 guys, that's when he's could potentially find his match. But at the moment, I just see him going on a tear. I don't know if he finishes him though, because I know, did he finish his last fight? I'm not sure. He might have had the decision, but I know he's had a decision against Jorgen de Castro this year as well, and that was under par to say. But I think
Yeah,
that Greg Hardy's going to have the knockout power, as we've seen in his fight, as we've seen in the Contender Series. I think he will have the. I think he's got the power and the strength advantage. I'm edging towards a Greg Hardy decision. How about you?
I'm the opposite, man. I'm going for a Tiberiade decision.
Mm.
I just think he's got the experience, and like you said, this is probably going to be one of his tough. I know he's fought Volkov. That was on short notice. I don't think that counts really because he didn't have a full training camp. But his last two fights were against Jorgen de Castro went the decision, and then a month ago tomorrow screen where he finished that fight with a nice power jab and ground and pound. But again, Mas Tibera is a big step up in competition. I know he's going to be the smaller bloke going into this one, Tibera, but he's probably going to be the second ranked opponent that Greg Hardy's faced in his career. I just think he's got the well-rounded ability to finish a guy not finish, but sort of frustrate Greg Hardy. I think his wrestling's top notch. I agree with you. I don't think he wants to be standing with Greg Hardy because he's got that knockout power. But if he keeps the fight, potentially getting onto the floor, keeping, sort of staying away from those dangerous right hands from Greg Hardy, I think he can control the fight for 3 rounds. I'm going to go early prediction Tiberiade decision.
Well, then there's two more of this weekend's card. Then Michelle Pereira against Kaylin Williams. I like Pereira, but at the same time, I like cockiness. But when you do backflips and that in the cage, no, I think there's no need for stuff like that, and it has shown. I'm sure he's lost a fight now in the UFC, but I'm edging towards a Pereira decision on this one.
Pereira decision.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, you look at his fight with Diego Sanchez. Was that his last fight?
Yeah, it had been.
No, because that wasn't his last fight because he lost to Diego Sanchez. Even though he was winning all 3 rounds, he obviously got disqualified at the end. His last fight was a couple months ago against Salim Ahmadiev, won by a rear naked choke, which is an impressive performance. But Chaos Williams, man, I think the reach is going to be a big factor for Chaos Williams. He's got a significant reach advantage over Michelle Pereira, and I just think he's going to be dangerous on the feet. He has some legit knockout power, Chaos Williams. And that fight against Abdul Al Hassan just sort of showed me, he's ready for a tough test in Michelle Pereira. I think he does get the job done, to be honest. I think he'll knock him out. And then,
last fight that I've got for us to talk about for this weekend's card is Anthony Pettis and Alex Morono. As we've seen in Alex Morono's last fight, dominant display against Reese McKee. Obviously, Reese came over from the Cage Warriors, fought Chimaev on short notice, and then he had the full camp for Alex Morono. Obviously, Morono very dominant, but Pettis' last fight with Donald Cerrone, I believe.
Yeah, correct.
I don't know what to think about this. My head says I don't know. My head says Pettis, but my heart says Morono because I'd like to see a new contender come through, but I just think Pettis is going to be too technical, too strong.
Yeah, no, I'm going for a Pettis fight decision. I just think he's got the attributes to be comfortable wherever the fight goes and then ultimately get the decision victory.
Yeah, I'm going, I think, decision as well. I think on this card there's going to be a lot of good fights, but also a lot of decisions.
Yeah.
100%. Then I've got 3 more fights to talk about. Well, first one, Khamzat Chimaev and Leon Edwards potentially being booked for January 20th, 3 days before the Conor McGregor card. If that fight does happen, how do you see it? Because I see Leon Edwards frustrating Chimaev. I don't see Chimaev bulldozing through his way through Edwards. I think I'd go for a Leon Edwards decision. What do you think?
No, totally agree with you. I mean, Khamzat Chimaev, 170 is his natural weight class. I think we can all agree on that. It's going to be very tough for him. Leon Edwards hasn't fought in 13 months, maybe even longer than that. So if he can get the job done against Chimaev, that certainly puts him in contention for another title shot. But again, it's a tough competition to go from, I don't know, a guy like Jael Meerschaert, who's unranked at middleweight, to Leon Edwards, who's one of the top contenders at welterweight. It's a bit of a tough ask to go out there and get the job done. So I'm going to go for Edwards by decision. I just think he'll frustrate him wherever the fight goes, and he'll be comfortable in his ability. I mean, if Hamzat sort of takes the fight to the floor, which will be very tough to do, then maybe he can hold his own there. But again, it's going to be a tough one. I'm going to go Edwards by decision.
Then next up, January 16th, Max Holloway returns after losing the fights against Alexander Volkanovski. He's coming back against Calvin Kattar. Lose. How do you see that one going? I see Max having a very dominant fight. I think Max is going to want to get back up in there into title contention, but after losing on the books twice against Alex Volkanovski, I don't see him getting the title shot again anytime soon. I think he's going to have 2 or potentially even 3 more fights after this fight to get another title, to deserve a title shot after losing 2 in a row. But I see Max Holloway having a dominant performance and winning via decision.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I've got to be careful with what I say, to be honest, because Calvin Kattar's coach follows me on Twitter. So if this gets trending across a social media platform and I'm backing against this boy, then it's not going to look good on me. But again, I think Chael Sonnen correctly and accurately said recently how it's going to come down to who's the better boxer, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, Calvin Kattar is one of the biggest rising stars in the featherweight division. He's just a crisp boxer, currently on a 2-fight winning streak after Danny again, Jeremy Stevens, lost on short notice to Zabit Magomedsharipov and Renato Moicano. Zabit's a very tough bloke who can't seem to get a fight right now. Again, I mean, I just love Max Holloway. He has the ability to use the kicks and wrestling if needed against Calvin Kattar, which he will have to. I think he will need to mix it up. Holloway, is a cardio machine. And we know Kattar has the decent gas tank. I think he's yet to show us that in many 5-round fights. I think we're expecting this to be a tough one on both fighters for inflicting and receiving damage. I think Kattar may be the better boxer but in terms of the all-round technical approach, I think Max Holloway has his number, and I think he'll edge it out in the scorecards. It'll be a decision victory.
And then the final fight and thing I've got to talk about is Dustin Poirier, 23rd of January, and he's fighting against the returning, twice retired, the boy, Conor McGregor.
Twice, probably 12th or 20th time now. God knows how long.
Probably. I'll let you talk about this one first. I can't wait for this one, but what are you making?
If all 3 cards are in Abu Dhabi, I mean, what a great sort of week we're in for. I mean, obviously, Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar, was Chimaev, and then Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier to wrap it all up. It's just sensational. I think very, very looking forward to this one. I think we're all big Conor McGregor fans. You can't not be a fan of Conor McGregor. I mean, what he's done with that sport is just unbelievable. He's transcended the sport of mixed martial arts, and he's put the UFC on the map, really. And it's going to be such a great fight. I think it will last longer than the first fight because both men were very cocky in their approach going to the first one. In this, I think Dustin Poirier was too passionate in trying to get the stoppage and wasn't really focused on the game plan at hand and getting the job done. But now, obviously, he's the former interim champion lightweight. Fought Khabib Nurmagomedov. He's coming off a great win over Dan Hooker back in June. As for Conor McGregor, he's coming off of a win over Donald Cerrone in January. And it's a while since we've seen both men fight, particularly Conor McGregor, obviously with Dustin Poirier, who's fought since June. So, reasonably not that long of a period off, but still, I think Dustin Poirier might want to be more active considering there was talks of him fighting in October against Tony Ferguson, but obviously that went out the window. I think I don't know, this fight is it's a lot closer than people make it out to be because I've seen people say Conor McGregor is just going to steamroll through him. That's not the case at all. I mean, Dustin Poirier, that man is legit now. He's a veteran of the sport. I think he's got to be careful in his approach because if he comes in too passionate, you see with Dustin Poirier, if the finish is there, he'll get overly invested in the finish, which leaves him susceptible to the left-hand counters or the right-hand counter, or just any form of counter. And with a guy like Conor McGregor, you cannot be doing that because he will pick you apart if he sees any sort of flaw in your game or any sort of flaw in your performance. And I think this will last longer than the first round. I think Conor McGregor will hit him with a couple of hard, nasty shots because he's probably going to be the hardest hitter Dustin Poirier has ever sort of faced in his whole entire career. And if he can survive the first round, that's going to be a real tough ask. But I can ultimately see McGregor getting this one in the second.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've said on a few occasions now, I think McGregor will end it in the second. I think Poirier might catch him, and like you say, he'll go full out for the finish, and then like you said again, he's susceptible to the either hand counter, and then it's just going to be. Then I think it's just going to be Conor McGregor's fight to win. I think second round stoppage. I do think it will last longer. I just think both guys are too technically smart now for it to end in the first. I think Poirier won't go in all guns blazing at the start, but I think he might go for it when he catches McGregor, and then McGregor will. I think it'll be McGregor's fight to win, and yeah, so I'm saying second round McGregor. Obviously, with that being the last thing that we had ready to talk about, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, done well, to be honest. Just getting over an hour. We've done very well. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that can discuss.
Before, we'll announce it on the Facebook group anyway, but obviously 30th and final podcast of the year tomorrow. We're getting Alex Patel back on. Great guy. Really enjoyed the episode last time, so sure it's going to be a banger. And one last, same thing as the beginning, is for everyone, if you can, please donate to the GoFundMe page. It is in the description. But yeah, apart from that, cheers for coming. Well, cheers for joining us again, James.
Take care, mate. Thank you for having me on again.
Take care. We'll see you guys tomorrow.